Okay, so you were lucky enough to get yourself a PlayStation 5. You get home, you install this bad boy up, you start it up, and then you're wondering, what game should I be playing? So it's really interesting with the PlayStation because they've done a really good job on enhancing some older games while giving you guys access to some pretty cool exclusive games. So in this video, guys, I'm going to show you what I think are, the top games that you can play right now on the PlayStation. This list will be as of May 2021. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Alright, so the first game is by Ubisoft, powered by the Ubisoft Anvil game engine. And as you guys can see right now, it is Immortals Fenyx Rising, which launched in 2020 of November. So Immortals Fenyx Rising is a third-person open-world adventure. And more specifically, it's an action-adventure genre. And this one is developed by Ubisoft Quebec. Now this game was released on the Amazon Luna, Windows, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Stadia, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and on the Xbox Series S. So as you guys can see, Immortals Fenyx Rising did come out on multiple platforms, but the nice thing about the PS5 version is that it runs in almost 4K native and at 60 frames per second. There are two versions of playing the game in terms of options and quality settings. You can play it in a performance mode as well as play it in a quality mode. Now the quality mode does give you improved graphics, better textures, better resolution in general, but it will drop the resolution to approximately 30 frames per second. I would highly recommend playing this game in performance mode as it gives you enough resolution, but what's really game changer about the game is being able to play in 60 frames per second. Now one thing you will notice off the bat just by looking at the video is that Immortals Fenyx Rising really took inspiration from The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. A lot of the same gameplay mechanics that were in Breath of the Wild are being utilized in Immortals Fenyx Rising. There are such things as the stamina meter, as well as being able to climb and being able to fly and glide. So you play as Fenyx, a new winged demigod, on a quest to save the Greek gods and their homes from a dark curse. You take on mythological beasts, master the legendary powers of the gods, and defeat Typhon, the deadliest titan in Greek mythology, in an epic fight for the ages. Now, Immortals Fenyx Rising's map is beautiful. The map is divided into 6 sections. You start off in the Valley of the Eternal Spring. There is also the Clashing Rocks area, the Warrior's Dens, the Gates of Tartaros, Grove of Kleos, the Forge Lands, and King's Peak. Alright, and let's take a look at the next game, which is Days Gone, which I think is probably one of the most underrated PS4 games. Don't listen to all the reviews, this game is amazing. Now Days Gone makes a list on games you should be playing on the PS5 because it got a 60 frames per second upgrade running at 4K checkerboard. The game was already amazing, but with this new upgrade, the entire experience is just changed. So Days Gone is an action-adventure survivor horror game set in a post-apocalyptic open world played from a third-person perspective. The player controls Deacon St. John, a former US Army Afghanistan war veteran turned drifter and bounty hunter who prefers life on the road to wilderness encampments. The game takes place 2 years after a global pandemic occurred, which killed almost all of humanity and transformed millions of others into what they call as freakers. You learn to survive in this post-apocalyptic world by making alliances with other encampments. Now, Days Gone utilizes Unreal Engine 4, which was used for the game's development. Days Gone was first revealed by Sony Interactive Entertainment at E3 in 2016. This game released on April 26, 2019. As I mentioned before in my video, this game got some mixed reviews, but I'm telling you guys, do not listen to the reviews because this game is fantastic. If you're looking for an open world survivor horror, look no further. You will love Days Gone. And as I mentioned before, now with the increased power from the PS5, this game will run at 4K and at 60 frames per second, giving you a completely new experience. So let's take a look at some gameplay. In this specific area, we are trying to eliminate a horde of freakers of over 300 zombies. The game lets you use different strategies based if you want to use more of a stealth approach or guns blazing.
Swarmers got to it before I did.
Good.
Yeah, well, we all got a common boozer.
Yeah, maybe, but Dan was a friend of mine. He cheated in cards on the goddamn time, but still. Alright, I'll see you then. Loser out.
Well, better luck next time, Deacon St. John. For our next game, we have Ghost of Tsushima. Now, this is my favorite PS4 exclusive game, and again, makes the list on a must-play on the PS5 because, again, it got an enhanced 60 frames per second and 4K checkerboard enhanced resolution. Now, Ghost of Tsushima is a 2020 action-adventure game developed by first-party studios from Sony called Sucker Punch Productions. Now, this game features a huge, rich open world, and the player controls Jin Sakai, a samurai on a quest to protect Tsushima Island during the first Mongol invasions of Japan. Now, as I mentioned, Ghost of Tsushima is an action-adventure stealth game played from a third-person perspective. The game features a large open world without any waypoints, which can be explored without guidance. Players can travel to different parts of the island on horseback or by feet, and an item that acts as a grappling hook is also available to help you access difficult areas to reach. Now, the open world of Ghost of Tsushima is one of the most varied maps I have ever seen inside an open world game. And one thing I have to say is that this game utilizes the wind mechanics like I've never seen in a game before. All the leaves moves, branches, trees, fog, all moves in cohesion with the wind. It is just fantastic to see and to behold. Now, Ghost of Tsushima features side quests and obviously some non-playable characters which can interact with the player. It gives for tons of side missions, and just in this game I spent over 100 hours just collecting all the different types of gears and upgrades. Now, players can engage in direct confrontation with enemies using weapons such as Itachi, which can also be used to chain up a series of fatal strikes after highlighting specific enemies. Alternatively, using stealth allows to evade enemies and strike them silently with tools such as firecrackers to create distractions, smoke bombs to disorient alerted foes, and kunais for striking multiple enemies. A kunai is like a throwable knife. Now, if this open world campaign wasn't enough, well, we were lucky enough to get a free downloadable multiplayer mode titled Legends, which was released in late 2020. Players can complete story missions based on Japanese folklore with another player. A horde mode in which players fight waves of enemies is also available for a group of 4 players. A raid was added post Legends launch as well. I hope you guys have been looking at the video because you have seen just how varied this world and how beautiful and alive it is. It is just amazing to play. This is one of the best open world games I have ever played. Now, the protagonist that you play, Jin Sakai, he's the head of the Sakai clan, which is a samurai warrior. He is the nephew and ward of Lord Shimura. He has several friends and companions that he meets, which play a critical role in the development of the game. There's one including a thief named Yuna and her blacksmith brother Taka, a female warrior named Lady Masako, and a renowned archer called Sensei Ishikawa. Now, all these characters just add an amazing storytelling and narrative to this already impressive game. Now, to give you guys a little bit of background on the plot, the game takes place in 1274 during a Mongolian invasion fleet led by Kotu Khan, which lands on the Japanese island of Tsushima. Jin Sakai joins the rest of the island's local samurai, led by his uncle Lord Shimura, in an attempt to repel the invasion. Unfortunately, the battle ends in a disaster, with almost all the samurai army killed. Lord Shimura is captured and Jin grievously wounded and almost left for dead. Jin is found and nursed back to health by Yuna, a local thief, who informs him that most of Tsushima has already fallen to the Mongols. Jin storms Kotokan's stronghold at Castle Kanade, and in an attempt to rescue Lord Shimura, is defeated by Kotokan in combat and thrown from the bridge. That's how the game begins, and I'm not going to tell you more because I don't want to spoil the rest. If you have an opportunity to play Ghost of Tsushima, this is a must play. If you played it on the PS4 and are finding an excuse to play it again, trying it on the PS5 will give you a completely new experience. This game is just amazing, and hats off to Sucker Punch for creating such a masterpiece and what I think should have won 2020 Game of the Year. Another thing to mention about Ghost of Tsushima is the audio quality. Sucker Punch sent an audio team to Japan to record different sounds, including bird songs. The players can switch to Japanese dialogue with English subtitles. Alright, the next game is Ratchet Clank, made by Insomniac Games. This is the PS4 version, and again, a PS4 game that I highly recommend for you guys to play on the PS5 because it got the PS5 enhanced upgrades. Such upgrades are being able to play this game at 60 frames per second and 4K resolution. Now, this Ratchet Clank game was originally released in 2016. It is the 15th installment of the Ratchet Clank series. The game is a reimagining of the first game in the series, as well as being based on the 2016 film of the same name. The game was originally planned to be released in 2015 but was delayed, along with the film, to April 2016 in order to give the film a better marketing campaign and the game additional polish time. Now, Ratchet & Clank received positive reviews upon release, with critics particularly praising the overall gameplay, controls, visuals, weapons, and world design. Insomniac Games announced that the title will be updated to 60 frames per second for the PS5. The update was released on March 31st, 2021. Now, the Ratchet & Clank shares many gameplay similarities with the other entries in the series. The main playable character is Ratchet. Clank is playable but only in several portions of the game. As Ratchet, the player navigates diverse environments, defeating enemies with an array of different weapons and gadgets, and traversing obstacles. Now, Clank is attached to Ratchet like a backpack, performing several functions such as allowing diving in water, gliding through the use of propellers, and on occasion acting as a jetpack to allow fight. Though Ratchet & Clank is a reimagining of the 2002 video game, it has a variety of gameplay elements from different entries in the series, such as strafing, automatic weapon and health upgrades, manual weapon upgrading, and the inclusion of weapons seen in later games. It features new weapons such as the Pixelizer, which gives enemies an 8-bit appearance. Environments are presented in a somewhat linear manner, although multiple paths are available for the player to take. The player progresses through the story by traveling from planet to planet. New planets are unlocked once story objectives on previous planets have been completed. Aside from battling enemies, the player utilizes a swing shot to cross gaps, ride grind rails to travel through levels, walk on magnetic surfaces, activates switches to open new paths, and occasionally must solve a hacking minigame. Racing, in the form of hoverboard races and aerial combat missions in which the player controls a spaceship, also appear in the game. This adds to already the immense variety. Bosses, which are mainstay in the series, are featured in some levels. After completing the game, the player may choose to enter challenge mode, in which the game's difficulty level rises considerably, but most items, including all weapons, are carried through. This is almost like a Game Plus mode. Again, if you're new to the Ratchet & Clank series, don't let the cartoonish-like graphics steer you away. This game is amazing. It has awesome visuals, great gameplay, tight controls, and just so much fun. Alright, let's take a look at the next game, which is also by Insomniac. And yes, by Marvel. You guys probably have already guessed it. Yes, this is Spider-Man Miles Morales. This is my favorite PlayStation 5 exclusive game, and it's just a masterpiece. The PlayStation 5 gives you up to 3 different graphic modes to play. You can either play it in performance mode, you can play it in performance RT mode, which is performance ray tracing, or you can play it in quality mode. Now, the latest Spider-Man Miles Morales game is the latest adventure in the Spider-Man universe, which build on and expand on the Marvel's Spider-Man through an all-new story with a new protagonist called Miles Morales. Players will experience the rise of Miles Morales as he masters new powers to become his own Spider-Man, as Spider-Man leaves the city of New York for Miles Morales to look over. Now, being that this game is the second installment in the Marvel Spider-Man series, which follows Spider-Man It depicts Miles' struggle to balance the duties of his civilian persona and Spider-Man when his new home, Harlem, is threatened by a war between the Roxxon Energy Corporation and the Tinkerers' high-tech criminal army called the Underground. Spider-Man is caught in between this war, and this is how the game pursues. Now, Spider-Man Miles Morales brings some new gameplay mechanics to just freshen up the franchise. The New York City is as beautiful as always, being closer to our Christmas timeline, giving it that snowy feel and just amazing sensation. Now, when playing Spider-Man Miles Morales, I would highly recommend for you to either use the graphics mode Performance or Performance RT. If you select the Performance mode, you are going to be playing in as close as possible to 4K native, running at 60 frames per second. There will be some DRS, which is some dynamic resolution scaling for those busier scenes. If not, you can also play what's called Performance RT. Performance RT is performance ray tracing. What happens here is that your game drops in resolution to approximately 1080p and on some other scenes up to 1440p, but you're able to play the game using full ray tracing. Miles Morales also has new gameplay mechanics such as electricity charged hits. And since we're on the topic, I have to also include Spider-Man Remastered. Spider-Man Remastered is the critically acclaimed PS4 Spider-Man game, which was remastered and enhanced for PS5 consoles. Experience the complete award-winning adventure with updated visuals and immersive new features. Now, there are a lot of new PS5 features for Spider-Man Remastered. Obviously, there are stunning visuals, the super fast loading using the PS5's console ultra high-speed SSD gets you back into Marvel's New York quicker than ever before. Get into blockbuster moments immediately and fast travel across the city quicker than you can say Peter Parker. You also have the new adaptive triggers, which feel Spider-Man's webs in your hands with the DualSense controller's adaptive triggers. The haptic feedback also of Spider-Man's gadgets and arsenal are bringing incredible immersion and letting you experience the game in a whole new way. Now, the Tempest 3D audio tech on compatible headphones from the traffic of Marvel's New York below the pigeons soaring above, hear Marvel Spider-Man with 3D spatial audio. Notice sounds you didn't catch the first time around and pinpoint exactly where they're coming from thanks to the PS5 console's powerful Tempest 3D audio tech. I did mention about stunning visuals. Be greater than before with Marvel Spider-Man visuals remastered for the power of the PlayStation 5 console. Experience the critically acclaimed hit with updated graphical assets and stunning dynamic 4K HDR. Experience swinging through New York and combat as an experienced Spider-Man with an optional performance mode that takes advantage of Insomniac's temporal injection for dynamic 4K at 60 frames per second. As you guys can notice, swinging through the cities, you got a beautiful skyline with that gleaming sun through HDR capabilities. If you've never played Spider-Man, this would be the perfect time to try out this game. With the new upgrades on the PS5, it makes it a must-own, especially for those players who have never experienced the Spider-Man game in the first place. Alright, the next game is developed by Bluepoint. This is Demon Souls. Demon Souls is an action role-playing game developed by Bluepoint Games with assistance from Japan Studio. It is a remake of Demon's Souls, originally developed by From Software and released for the Xbox 360 in 2009. Now, entirely rebuilt from the ground up, this remake invites you to experience the unsettling story and the ruthless combat of Demon's Souls. Now, this remake introduces the horrors of a fog-laden, dark fantasy land to a whole new generation of gamers. Those who faced its trials and tribulations before can once again challenge the darkness and stunning visual quality with incredible performance. In his quest for power, the 12th King of Boletaria, King Alan, channeled the ancient soul arts, awakening a demon from the dawn of time itself. With the summoning of the Old One, a colorless fog swept across the land, unleashing nightmarish creatures that hungered for human souls. Those whose souls were stripped from them lost their minds, left only with the desire to attack the same that remained. Alright, the next game is Hitman 3, which is a stealth game developed and published by IO Interactive for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, Stadia, and on the Nintendo Switch. This game launched in January of 2021. It is the 8th main installment in the Hitman series and the final entry in the World of Assassination trilogy, following Hitman and Hitman 2. The single-player story concludes the plot arc started in Hitman and follows genetically engineered assassin Agent 47 and his allies as they hunt down the leaders of Providence, the secretive organization controlling the world's affairs. Alright, the next game on the list is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Now, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is an action role-playing video game developed by Ubisoft Montreal and published by Ubisoft. It is the 12th major installment and the 22nd release in the Assassin's Creed series and a successor to the 2018 Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Set in the years 872 to 878 AD, Anno Domini, the game recounts a fictional story during the Viking invasion of Britain. The player controls Eivor, a Viking raider who becomes embroiled in the conflict between the Assassin's Brotherhood and the Templar Order. Assassin's Creed Valhalla, being an open-world action-adventure game, is structured around several main story arcs and numerous optional side missions called world events. Combat has been changed to allow dual wielding of almost any weapon, including shields, and every piece of gear that the player collects is unique. The Eagle Vision mechanic of previous titles returns in the form of Odin's Sight. If you're new to the Assassin's Creed games, Valhalla is a must-play. Alright, the next game is Control Ultimate Edition by Remedy. Remedy has come out with its next-gen port of Control Ultimate Edition, which bundles the game base and its 2 expansions. Control Ultimate Edition on the PS5 gets some upgraded graphics and some better frame rates. You can either play the game in 60 frames per second or you can play the game in 30 frames per second at 4K resolution with ray tracing. Alright guys, the next game on the list is Reeternal. Reeternal is a roguelike psychological horror video game developed by House Marquee and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. The game was released for the PlayStation 5 on April 30th, 2021. After crash landing on this shape-shifting world, Celine must search through the barren landscapes of an ancient civilization for her escape. Isolated and alone, she finds herself fighting tooth and nail for survival. Again and again, she's defeated, forced to restart her journey every time she dies. So playing as Celine, a space pilot, you're equipped with a suit and an armed with high-tech weapons, which is stranded on this alien planet called Atropos, and you seems to be stuck in what's called a time loop. So after every death, Celine is resurrected, following a pattern of traversing across foreign environments and combating extraterrestrial entities with growing vision in an ever-changing world. The game takes advantage of the PlayStation 5's DualSense controller and the Tempest engine to support advanced haptic feedback, 3D spatial audio, and real-time ray tracing effects, enhancing the player immersion experience. With the increased processing power and inclusion of a custom solid-state drive storage in the PlayStation 5, its SSD, the game features reduced loading times and a wide variety of enemies, visual effects, and objects within gameplay scenes. Additionally, the game runs at 4K resolution and 60 frames per second. Disobeying orders, Astra's corporation explorer Celine Vassos attempts to land on the off-limits planet of Atropos to investigate what she dubs the White Shadow Signal, which somehow seems familiar to her. However, upon arriving on Atropos, Celine's ship suffers heavy damage and she is forced to crash land. Unable to contact Astra, Celine begins exploring the planet and is shocked when she comes across corpses of herself. She quickly begins to learn that every time she dies, time seems to loop back to the moment she crashed, sending her back to her starting point. In addition, the planet seems to change every time loop, and she also experiences vivid but random visions. Resolving to find the source of the White Shadow, Celine presses on, fighting hostile alien lifeforms and scavenging alien technology left over from an advanced but extinct alien civilization that used to reside on Atropos. As she tracks the White Shadow through Atropos' various environments, Celine comes across what appears to be a replica of her childhood home. Every time she enters it, she recalls old memories and is constantly encountering an astronaut wearing an antique spacesuit. Designed for extreme replayability, the procedural world of Reeternal invites you to dust yourself off in the face of defeat and take on new, evolving challenges with every rebirth. There is intense combat, thrilling exploration, and haunting narrative. Fight to survive in this third-person roguelike shooter, take on ruthless enemies in explosive, bullet-filled combat, manage equipment and resources carefully because every time you die, you will start from the beginning. Scavenge alien tech for upgrades, and piece together fragments of Celine's memories as she seeks out for answers. The adaptive triggers and the haptic feedback give a whole new dimension of immersion. Switch instinctively between firing modes by using a single adaptive trigger, or go straight from aiming down sights to your gun's alternative fire. The haptic feedback is a sense in game actions, big and small, while exploring fragments of Celine's memories or when firing visceral alien weapons. If alien horror and roguelike is your type of game, you will not be disappointed with Reeternal. And don't forget, this is a PS5 exclusive. Okay guys, so the final game on the list is God of War. So God of War is an action-adventure game developed by Santa Monica Studio and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. Released worldwide on April 20th, 2018 for the PlayStation 4, it is the 8th installment in the God of War series and the 8th chronologically and the sequel to the 2010's God of War 3. Unlike previous games, which were loosely based on Greek mythology, this installment is rooted in Norse mythology, with the majority of it set in ancient Scandinavia in the realm of Midgard. Again, similar to Days Gone and similar to Ratchet Clank, this PS4 exclusive gets a full remake on the PS5 for free. It gets 4K checkerboard resolution as well as glorious 60 frames per second. Now, for the first time in the series, there are two protagonists. Kratos, the former Greek god of war who remains the only playable character, and his young son Atreus. Following the death of Kratos' second wife and Atreus' mother, they journey to fulfill her request that she ashes to be spread at the highest peak of the 9 realms. Kratos keeps his troubled past a secret from Atreus, who is unaware of his divine nature. Along their journey, they encounter monsters and gods of the Norse world. God of War received universal acclaim for its story, world design, art direction, music, graphics, combat system, and characters, and in particular the dynamic between Kratos and Atreus. This game won the 2018 Game of the Year award. And if you've never played God of War, this is a must play. And even if you play God of War on the PS4 and you own a PS5, you should definitely re-experience this game once again. Playing God of War on the PS5 does not feel like an old gen game. It just gets revitalized with the beautiful visuals and the 60 frames per second. God of War uses a third-person action camera view. It features an over-the-shoulder free camera, which is a departure from the previous installments, which featured a fixed cinematic camera. The player controls the character Kratos in combo-based combat and puzzle game elements. The gameplay is vastly different from previous games, and it was completely rebuilt from the ground up. A major change is that Kratos no longer uses his signature double-chain blades, the Blades of Chaos, but his default weapon. Instead, he uses a magical battle axe called the Leviathan Axe. This axe is infused with ice elemental magic, and the axe can be thrown at enemies and magically summoned back to his hand. That game mechanic is highly addictive. The Leviathan Axe can also be thrown at environmental objects to trigger a damaging explosion. It can freeze objects and some enemies in place for puzzle solving until the axe is summoned back to Kratos' hand. The axe has a standard light and heavy attacks. Over time, it can be upgraded with runes to allow for magical runic attacks, with one slot being for a light magical attack and the other for a heavy one. This provides players with a variety of options to cater to their own play style. Another new weapon that the Kratos utilizes is called the Guardian Shield. When not in use, it folds up and appears like a Vambrance on his left forearm. So that's the video for today. So that is my list of the top games that I think you should be playing right now on the PS5. Again, if you were lucky enough to get yourself a console. As you guys saw from the list, there were some older last gen games as well as some newer generation games using the extra power from the PS5. So if you enjoyed this video and found some value, I would really appreciate a thumbs up. If you really like this video, what I would really appreciate is a subscription to the channel. As always, have yourself a great day, have yourself a great night, and I will catch you in the next one. Cheers!